we've uncovered a computational propaganda attempt where stolen soldiers' footage was AI enhanced. So basically, you had Israeli soldiers dancing, and a textual overlay said, "I'm a nurse, be my friend," something like that. Pretty cheesy, cheap fake stuff. And then we observed the sound that was used, and we found half of the videos were middle-aged men spread over the entire globe, basically staring at the camera, obviously trying to get in contact with these nurses. So what this example showed is, on the one hand, you have young female soldiers dancing in uniform with weapons, and on the other hand, you have clearly, and you could just see that, hundreds of more or less Gen X men, various backgrounds, various skin color, various situations, sitting in a police car, doing some cooking, lying in bed half naked. So this struck me because it shows like a generational gap.
All right, everybody, hip replacement episode number 34. Kyle, we're here with Marcus Bösch, who's dialing in from Cologne, Germany, which explains why his website is marcusbosch.de, as a for instance. Marcus is a TikTok researcher and the author of a newsletter called Understanding TikTok that late pandemic, or maybe immediately after the pandemic, I came upon as I was trying to understand and explain TikTok to let's call it my endemic audience, which is not endemic to TikTok. And I found what Marcus was doing really fascinating. He brings a sort of a scholar's attention and thoroughness to a discussion of trends on the platform that range from simple sort of viral trends through to real uses in socio-political means, and some of which we'll talk about later, I'm sure. But it just struck me as this really like a very smart way to make a dumb platform like intelligible, or a like over investiture of scholarly resources sorry, I'm saying it the wrong way. What I'm trying to draw is it's smart done stupid, stupid done smart. And I think, Marcus, you helped me understand a lot. So I was very excited to have you come here.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to ruin my reputation from now on. Wow, thanks for that.
Well, look, I think Kyle and I both have a love-hate relationship with the kind of scholarly appraisals of these pop culture subjects in which we are so immersed, because on the one hand, it is so necessary that you take an objective and long-term look at some of this stuff. And on the other hand, given how ephemeral all of these, items of expression are, it also seems, tortured in a way. And so anyway, how does one become a TikTok researcher?
I don't know. Just call yourself a researcher for starters.
There we go.
Fair enough.
And the other thing is, my personal interest, it was always my personal interest. It was driven by the wish to better understand what's going on there. So I came to TikTok and saw this whole notion of alt TikTok back in the days, like more like the crazy fringe stuff. And I didn't understand that. I couldn't wrap my head around that. So I tried to investigate that. And apart from that, I wanted to try out a newsletter anyhow. So I forced myself to keep on exploring. And I don't know, it hasn't yet got boring. So I'll just stick to it. To become one of the old school Facebook researchers, you remember these? I'm going to be that in a couple of months or years.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, there's a great sideline then in the future of optimizing yourself for TikTok marketplace or whatever it is, being a consultant on that side of things. What was there a particular piece of fringe content or a particular sort of rabbit hole that you went down in the first place that you were like, how can I possibly understand this? And that's what brought you in?
Yeah, sure. Well, back in the days, it was a lot about, let's say, good-looking college kids dancing, right? In the beginning of TikTok in the US. And
Very
what
early TikTok.
And what got me were these 15 or 17-year-old kids who immersed themselves into being like an international corporation, imagining how their weird performance would look like, stuff like that. So they did a lot of animations that were super poorly screencasted, I guess. And I like that. Like, trying to be an insurance company for a state car deliverer or something like that. That got me. And apart from that, yeah, it was more about the aesthetics, like just weird stuff happening. And there's a lot of
Kyle,
weird stuff obviously happening on the platform.
yeah,
Yeah.
what do you remember the name of that movement, Kyle? Because I don't remember it. I'm now coming back to my first times reading, understanding TikTok, I think, and in that was that notion of like the kids now want to be brands,
Right.
right? But was there a name for that?
Well, I don't specifically remember that movement, but I feel like that just sort of emerged natural. It's funny because like, I feel like that was happening around the time when probably in other social networks and the internet itself, that was happening where the creator sort of became brand, and like that was happening the same time as like TikTok was starting to like really get its footing, and like I feel like it hit at the same time where it naturally sort of fused in a really, I want to say a lovely way, but that's because it was really quaint at the time, and now it's like, ew, disgusting, like just that's awful.
Oh, it's because they've seen through more cynical eyes. It is a little bit dark. Okay, got it. Well, and then Marcus, as you went down that rabbit hole, let's say, what then struck you about the ways in which TikTok was different than, I don't know, areas where you had previously focused or subject matters where you were expert?
Well, obviously, several things. One thing, obviously, was the algorithmic curation. So you didn't need to follow accounts, build a network, and stuff like that, which took like for ages on ancient Twitter to get
Sure,
the
of course.
social circle to find the right people and get their content. So here it just happened instantly. And then obviously the whole interface was absolutely revolutionary. Just remember back like Instagram stories, like tapping, and then it went sideways, which absolutely makes no sense on a mobile phone where you just swipe. So basically, TikTok brought in the swiping thumb, right?
Right.
Which everybody has copied afterwards, but they were the ones who made it like world class. And apart from that, I really like this notion of like these sessions where you wasted time on TikTok, but you did not only watch like 2 or 3 videos, but like 3 or 400. And I think that was pretty good for my user behavior. It was a lot in a short amount of time. So that ticked a bunch of boxes. And this whole notion of falling in love with strangers, a notion that I had at that time because you never knew what you got, like in the old slot
Sure.
machine. But suddenly there were people and they were like, wow, who's that? Or, oh my God, this haircut is good, or whatever. So that was something totally different.
The and okay, did you at any point, or I guess at what point did you start to think this might also be a problem?
Or did you?
Is it a problem?
Right.
Well, I think one of the things that I think has been amazing about reading, understanding TikTok over the last few years is that you have moved from across a whole bunch of areas that, from the kids as brands, right? Where you're right, it's probably where I was introduced to your work in the first place, through to the rise of right-wing populism and TikTok as a channel for or for propaganda, disinformation, so on and so forth. Like, if none of that strikes you as problematic, I would be a little surprised. That's all.
No, absolutely not. Of course, I'm just joking because the entire discourse basically on
Yeah.
TikTok is like, oh my God, this is a hell machine, etc., etc., etc. And of course it is, but not only. So to pin it down time-wise, I'm really bad at remembering stuff that has been gone. But the whole Russian invasion of Ukraine was definitely the point where you could see in real time the preparation for an actual war. the whole anxiety on the platform about a potential World War III. And then you could see actual soldiers and actual people fleeing while documenting their entire journey on the platform. That was definitely one moment where I went like, oh my God, there's way more to it than just like the crazy stuff. It was
Yeah.
crazy as well, but it was actual war fighting documented in real time on a platform in the palm of your hand. And this was definitely something new and terrible. And this whole notion of, oh my God, what has happened there? It has been evolving ever since. So I've written a paper on thirst trap propaganda in the Israel-Gaza war. So yeah, this has escalated quickly.
I was going to say,
yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
I remember that moment with the Ukraine war starting, but I specifically remember there was the thirst trap Russian soldiers. That was like, I remember that moment, and like that along with like there was a lot of pro-Ukrainian memes happening, and like that manner of soft warfare, whatever you want to call it, soft power, really like, brings us now, obviously, I think, to what you were saying, maybe then you're going to get into this too, is how that then ties into like the Israel-Palestine conflict. And even when we compare that, I was having a conversation about this last week, is like, when we compare that then to like what's happening in Sudan, like Sudan is quote unquote out of sight, out of mind, because you don't have now a window into the culture and normal people who can normalize war in a way that sort of reveals these sort of like atrocities that happen. We're not getting that, which is why like that TikTok has been so fascinating, exactly to that point, because like you can unfortunately or fortunately peek into a war zone and see real people and see the brutality and like make change, which is unprecedented.
Is it unprecedented? I mean, I guess, and there has been news broadcast always from there. I guess it's the voice is changed. Is it the voice or the access or both?
I think
the
both.
media have changed. So you obviously had television like in Vietnam, but CNN was live during the Gulf War with this whole aesthetic, like everything's like greenish. And you had smartphone documentation of conflict or the Arab Spring with Facebook live streams on a mobile phone. But this multi-perspectivity mixed with platform vernacular was what made it, what brought in a new quality.
I'm processing all that. Go ahead, Kyle.
Because I was going to say is like the difference, because like that is all true. Like I obviously even everything from like, marches on Ferguson to the Arab Spring and like various sort of things that happened in 2010, like that was online in a way. But like the thing that changed, and I think we probably got a taste of this, let's say with like, certain Black Lives Matters activations, protests, however we want to call them, is like what happened, especially now with like the Israel-Palestine conflict. And this is going to sound really crass, but I think it's true, is like they turn into reality shows. They turn into reality shows where everybody's participating. Even as the audience, you're participating. You can go outside and you can protest and hold people accountable. You can go and like here in Barcelona, you can go to the Flotilla Lounge and like support Greta Thunberg, who's then going to post about it on TikTok until she gets detained. And so like that is a different dynamic. It sort of became in a way like, not exactly this, but almost like the movie Running Man or whatever that sort of idea is, that like this is a reality show where everybody's participating and sharing and broadcasting. And like that was a specific game show. This is unfortunately like a very real war. And like that's exactly why you have someone like Miss Rachel sort of speaking up and using the platform, because she recognizes that. And like that's like, and Donald Trump recognizes that too. That's why he's so online. It's like it is unfortunately a reality show mentality, a reality show worldview that's sort of like really coming to life, which is awful.
Marcus, one of the
people are talking about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm interested to know too, because this show is ostensibly about a conversations between generations X, Y, and Z, and how they each react to, encounter, respond, proliferate stories like this. How in your examination of TikTok as a platform, how would you describe the differences in how, let's call it, a Gen X audience might come to this kind of wartime thirst trapping, as opposed to a Gen Z audience thereabouts.
Yeah, that's super important point, because actually TikTok for a very long time, or probably still, is always seen as the young platform for the kids. Nonetheless, this platform has obviously aged, and so has the group of people using it. So to give you a precise example, I have uncovered, together with my colleague Tom Devon, in this Thirst Trap propaganda piece, we've uncovered a computational propaganda attempt where stolen soldiers' footage was AI enhanced. So basically you had Israeli soldiers dancing, and textual overlay said, "I'm a nurse, be my friend," something like that. Pretty cheesy, cheap fake stuff. And then we observed the sound that was used, and we found half of the videos were middle-aged men spread over the entire globe, basically staring at the camera, obviously trying to get in contact with these nurses, very platform illiterate, by tapping on the sound, because you can use this sound, and they were trying to get in contact. So what this example showed is, on the one hand, you have young female soldiers dancing in uniform with weapons, and on the other hand, you have clearly, and you could just see that, hundreds of more or less Gen X men, various backgrounds, various skin color, various situations, sitting in a police car, doing some cooking, lying in bed half naked. So this struck me because it shows like a generational gap.
Okay, so the generational gap being that that younger audience would not interact with the content that way. They wouldn't be fooled by it.
In this case, it was targeted at a specific target audience, obviously heterosexual men, and obviously younger heterosexual men had enough platform literacy not to tap on the use this sound button, to stare at the camera, waiting for some sort of reaction. But it showed that you have all these audiences on the platform now, and there's a bunch of pretty famous creators. Maybe you have come across Unbothered Kev, who's basically just dancing in socks back at home. And he is probably in his 60s or early 70s. So he's just like one of these top performers for niche nerd content. But there are a lot of these. So I think the platform is now filled, as all the platforms, with people from basically all age groups.
I was going to say, like, there was I don't remember the person's name, but I believe there's a documentary coming out about it, about this one young, cute, white American guy who had an audience on TikTok and maybe even Instagram too, of like women in their like 60s and 70s or whatever, who were like giving away their life savings to him because they just thought he was so adorable. And like that.
Is this the guy that looks like Brad Pitt? This is not the guy that looks like Brad Pitt.
No, I don't think he didn't really look like anybody. He was just like a guy next door, and like he, whether intentionally or not, like really capitalized on that attention. Like, again, I don't think he set out to be like, I'm going to con these old ladies into giving me their money and their savings, but like that's sort of what ended up happening as a result. And like it's going across the same axiom that like you're just mentioning, but like that. It's interesting what then happens when you do have those sort of like overlapping generations, communities in space that they maybe don't know how to use, or they don't have those sort of like best practice, which again, we're seeing now across all generations with like AI now infiltrating that spaces. Cause now it's like, it's getting everybody in very unique, interesting ways.
So that was one pivot point that I wanted to ask you about, Marcus. One of the stories that you shared with us as being interesting of late is about the Mamdani campaign. So now mayor-elect in New York, his campaign using social media in a very fluent and very natural way. One thing that was really noticeable about the way that he did it was that there was no AI, very, very pointedly not any AI, and in contrast to Andrew Cuomo, who famously used it quite badly. But I wondered what it was, not specifically about AI, but just generally speaking about how that Mamdani campaign strikes you as being important in the, development of the space.
Coming from an academic background, there's this whole discussion around political authenticity, which is obviously, as authenticity always, not like real, but performed and enacted. I think Mamdani did a fantastic job to appear authentic in the best of all ways. And I just heard, what's his name? The guy who does the Know Your Meme database. I always forget his name.
Mm.
Damn. But he had this take like, okay, and Mamdani always wore that suit and tie, and people were just longing for that, to find a decent guy who just shows up and does the stuff. What I found striking is because there was some AI, but it was hyper targeted. For instance, there's this crazy flower opening up, and then you have four heads of Mamdani like moving around. And this was in an aesthetic that was perfectly suited for diaspora communities. And it was, I bet, widely shared in various WhatsApp chats, because this is the thing that TikTok is very strong at, like this cross-platform compatibility. You can easily download most videos and just like share them. And I've seen them popping in our personal family WhatsApp group with people, including above 80-year-olds, having seen a TikTok somewhere because it appeared. So back to Mamdani. Yeah, he has produced like memeable content pretty effortlessly, and the whole visual design, if it was really done by his wife, wow. So he
Yeah.
he did a lot, but obviously he did a lot online and offline, and that perfectly matched. Like he was like all over the place. Like, I've seen this video today where he showed up at a Pink Panthers concert, and this was just like one of like
Right.
1,000 appearances of him. So he basically did hard work and is obviously a somewhat online person.
Mhm.
It's one of the things that is interesting is that his video team is the same video team that does Subway Takes and the Kareem
Ah.
Rama interview series, and at least a couple of former colleagues of mine. In fact, what I think they probably took away from their experience doing Subway Takes was the power of serendipitous, presence, right? Like, in other words, if you show up every day on the subway and just talk to people, you are going to get some interesting opportunities that come out of it. And New York, as much as it's a gigantic city, is kind of a small place when it comes to the communities of influence or proximity. The suit is interesting because I wonder whether that was something that they borrowed from Kareem, and the notion of like the uniform sets the tone for the conversation and therefore then sets the expectation. Or maybe, Marcus, as you're saying, like people just hungry for a little bit of formality, a little bit of structure in a world gone cuckoo.
And the whole visual style somehow reminded me of like these 2010 year, what was it called? 50 people, one question or stuff like that. That was like a YouTube internet thing.
This is Jubilee.
I don't quite remember, but it was like more like
Is
a
it?
documentary television done in
So this
an advanced
got
way.
it. Got it. So it's not Jubilee is the broadcaster, let's call it, that has a single expert who debates 20 people all at the same time. Charlie Kirk was famously on it before he was assassinated. Okay, so you're talking about something different. Yeah, and look, I think the idea of Vox Pops as a means to just express your affinity with people as well as your approachability, likability it's really smart, right? Actually get in and talk to people as opposed to exist behind a dais.
And it came at the exact right time because it was just like Trump AI slop all over, and the only democratic attempt to counter that was like fighting fire with fire, like putting more AI slop out there. So I think a target audience was definitely bored with this battle of AI slop all over the place. So this felt unique, real, and Yeah, somewhat nice, and it was definitely suited for doing campaigning in a city, not for reaching like
Right.
everybody in the entire country.
Because I
Yeah.
was going to
So
say that was something
the other.
really
Go
quickly.
ahead,
I
Kyle.
was saying like that was something that really resonated with me. That was a big takeaway. Was that like this would not have worked as a national strategy, or at least like the Pink Panthers of it all. Like that would not have resonated. Like the anti AI, the real person thing, like sure, and like the talking about real issues and being in real places, like yes, that would resonate with a lot of people. But like where I think the stress of it appears or manifests is like th- there was no clear Kamala is Brat point, and that was good because like that was a bit isolating. That was too coastal, and like he did lean into some of those things of like it wasn't enough that it was at the expense of having to need to explain something or to need to contextualize something. That kept happening with other campaigns. Like again, Kamala comes to mind is that like if you have to stop and explain it to some people, like you've lost. Like that's like you sort of have like things have run away from you. And I think where we are seeing actually a really good counterpoint, and I'm sure there are also local European ones too, is that like if we think about what Gavin Newsom is doing, and like that is very divisive for a lot of different reasons because it doesn't feel as authentic. It feels very smart and very online, but it doesn't seem true to him. Like you're not seeing that same sort of relatability and reality or realness because we also have, granted, we have like 40 years of Gavin Newsom being on camera and living his life and being rich. So like that doesn't, it wouldn't ring as true, but like that I think is the flip side of it. And like we will see that campaign adjust accordingly to the like Zoran one because like that clearly was something resonant in a lot of ways.
And it felt
One thing.
totally like post Kamala, right? Because she was like 100% at some point, in my opinion, just leaning into the whole brat thing. And we all know how that went. So I think this time was way more matured. Like, yeah, there's a lot of online stuff happening, but don't fully rely on the brat kids to bring you into office.
It was based
Yeah.
in real life.
Yeah. Well, in most significantly didn't start with the brat kids, started with you know, communities of color, Muslims in New York, people that you know had been historically not even underrepresented, but had been under recruited, underutilized, right? And I think that's obviously really important because the coolest of the cool kids are going to look at where's stuff going on that is interesting and new and different to mine from. Marcus, one thing, another story that you shared was from where was it from?
Politico?
Politico, yeah, from Politico, where it detailed in the final days of the Mamdani campaign, strategists and practitioners from European parties coming over to understand and participate in the Mamdani campaign to see how it was all done. Do you now anticipate in the next election cycles in Germany, or Kyle, the next election cycles in Spain, or any other countries that you're paying close attention to, this sort of Mamdanification of the political, the campaigning process, or do the results need to gestate first a little bit before they get fully adopted?
One thing is that Europeans and especially Germans definitely always look to the US concerning campaigning. So I've been in the last 20 years to events and they always had like this one famous campaigner on the team who was singularly responsible for Obama becoming president and teaching or better preaching to an audience of Germans who were like, oh my God, okay, we're just going to do it exactly the same, which obviously is not working in a totally different environment. So I think campaigners in Germany, at least, they're confused now because up till now they thought, oh my God, we have to totally do the AI slop Trump thing. And now they have Mamdani and woke is suddenly back and the entire thing feels way more real. So that might just, because they contradict somewhat, so it might totally confused campaigners. On the other hand, obviously, this is a left-leaning thing, so I think it will for sure inspire parties like the left in Germany, who have done an amazing job in the last election, like very, very online, doing pretty cool stuff on TikTok.
I was going to say the thing that happened almost simultaneously in Europe was Rob Jetten sort of like winning, quote unquote, in the Netherlands. Like this left center, but like mostly left party. And this was, I have not, truth be told, like I have not like dug into his stuff, but like a big part of that was appealing to young people on TikTok. And he's like a 37, I believe, 37-year-old like gay guy, very telegenic. His husband is a former like football player, I believe. So like they are a great package deal, and like he's very progressive and like very outspoken about progressive values. So it's funny that like that sort of happened nearly the same. I think it was the same week actually. I think it was Sunday was Rob Jetton sort of winning, and then Tuesday was Zoran. So like it's very much like, you know, wherever you go, there you are, and that there is, I'm sure there's a lot of studying that's going to be happening about that, because that was a bit of an upset and a surprise. All to say that, like, you know, I'm sure that there was plenty done online on his behalf and his party's behalf, but also probably plenty done in real life with communities. And I think that is sort of the reality that's being learned, especially in more progressive parties. It's like you do have to straddle both of them. It's not, you cannot just win the online people. I think that is it's true of everything now, especially since tech is sort of degrading as far as likability. Like that's now increasingly off the table as a main event.
And the Netherlands at the same time saw a massive amount of right-wing extremists engaging in live streaming, in putting out a hell lot of AI slop. So the Netherlands election is definitely something to study, because it just like in the US, describing the current now. So we have platforms getting filled and filled with AI slop, and obviously some wish for authenticity. So this is probably gonna develop a bit further in the coming month.
And 30 somethings. They both are in their 30s.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I thought you were going to ask if 30 something, the TV show, was coming back and it was going to be
maybe
affecting...
in our dreams.
Yeah. I mean, listen, why not? You can be the millennial show from here on out. The zillennial show, 30 something. One, I guess, question that the geopolitical significance of all of these discussions brings to mind, and is a question that Kyle asked, which, Marcus, what's happening with TikTok here in the States? Meaning, you know, ownership structure, et cetera. Like, as someone who's high and inside there, do you have any better sense of what's actually going on than the rest of us do?
I don't really know what your guys are doing over there. So basically,
that
makes all of us.
Right.
I'm not sure that at this current point in time, we, like the general public, are really in the know what is about to unveil when it comes to details, right? So there will obviously some sort of TikTok US will be a thing. If this will be another app or not, most likely not. But obviously the algorithm will be licensed and retrained. And maybe there are two ways how this can evolve. One thing is like TikTok US becomes something like Douyin, like the Chinese version of TikTok, which is completely different, even though it looks exactly the same. There is no cross connection.
Yeah, I was going to say, talk about that, because I'm unfamiliar with the ways in which it's different.
Okay, so basically, Douyin is the Chinese version of TikTok. It's an app. You can even Douyin.com. You even can check it out in the web browser, which is heavily censored and algorithmically curated by the Chinese state. So a lot of content actually praising China. You can learn a lot of propaganda there, but you will most likely not get like whatever that what we call journalism. You will not find that on this platform. So it's a Chinese thing, and there is, I think, a possibility where TikTok US will go into a direction like that, not speaking like in the coming month, but as a general direction for the internet in general, like more fragmentation. This could be a thing. The other thing could be Well, basically, maybe US stuff is just on US servers, but in your daily life, the experience might more or less stay the same. European users can check out US stuff, US users can check out stuff from the entire globe, but we do not know yet how the license algorithm will be retrained. And looking at the potential buyers of TikTok, we should be aware that these are yet again tech billionaires who are like pretty close to Trump.
Right.
Sure.
I
Go ahead, Kyle, because I have a thought here.
The concern that I have, I think that's exactly a very exactly sort of how it seems. The thing that I keep thinking about is which maybe is to this point, I'm curious what you think about this, Marcus, is it feels like inadvertently what is happening and what can and will happen to the point of it becoming the US's version of a Chinese social network is like the Trump idea of building a wall is just going to happen on a social network. And like that sort of beauty of TikTok, of being able to, unfortunately, be able to peek into a war zone and understand what real people are going through, will go away. And like you might be able to do that in some ways within the country, which is important in its own right in a lot of ways. But like that still is, especially if we're going to the length of like the build a wall logic is happening. Sure, let's go that distance. And that's then going to mean is like they're not going to not put walls up between communities and to not already sort of like, you know, the phenomena of people talking about music festivals in certain cities. Like they're not talking about music festivals, they're talking about protest. And like that idea is already happening because people are paranoid that it's going to change. So like I that seems a bit likely. I hope that like it can still have that cross-cultural connection, because like that would be a huge step back culturally if like the world then is taken offline in a lot of ways. Or
Well,
America.
I also here's my question, Marcus. It strikes me that one of the reasons that the TikTok algorithm works as it does to move away from a focus around the most popular individuals and instead surface new content and have constant discovery comes to some degree from the differences between the Western sense of identity and the Eastern sense of, or the Chinese sense of identity in particular, right? There is a sense of collective, less focus on the individual, at least until you get to the uppermost, realms of leadership. And I wonder if in an American version of TikTok, both because of the focus on the existential self in the West, and also because of the economic incentives of its purchasers, you end up in a zone, Kyle, that is heavily segmented and heavily stratified anyway, because that's what capitalism demands, not and the Western sense of self, not even because there's any high design around it. I don't know, Marcus, any reaction to that?
It's a super interesting thought, because we have to keep in mind that TikTok is the very first platform that had global success, which is not from the US, right? So this is something new. On the other hand, the goal for ByteDance, who was always a capitalistic driven endeavor, was to keep people in the app, to have ads, to earn money. So that was always the incentive. I totally like this approach, like this connectivity and community thought. But in the end, ByteDance, they are billionaires now, and the new owners are billionaires. Sure. So that's where they actually shake hands wherever they're situated. On the other hand, I totally get this border association, because we live in a post-digital world. Okay, there's an online-offline nexus, and we have walls in the real world, and there's aims for walls in the digital world as well. So I can definitely see that, because what we're witnessing, and you guys know that way better than me, is like this authoritarian development in the US, however you call it. But obviously what comes with that is like, in Germany we have this fantastic word like mediale Gleichschaltung. You want to control the media, right? And if you look at the ownership situation right now, we have one of the at least former most important platforms, X, which is owned by the world's richest man. We have, I don't want to give you like the entire list. Jeff Bezos Monster Washing Post, etc., etc., etc. And TikTok will be in the hands of, let's say, the MAGA tech bro elite. So, yeah, this actually does not sound like let's do this global internet where we all can come together and learn like back in the days with Wikipedia. It sounds more like Grokkipedia preparing the world for an AI-infused authoritarian state.
Well, the thing with that is because the other thing that's happening as well, which like I keep thinking about this, and this is a very recent thought because I think The Verge was sort of talking about it last week or the week before, and it is like giving me like I'm not horrified by it, but I think the interesting thing that TikTok also developed, to your point, is like the swiping. Like it's sort of like it kept you going into a feed that like it comes to you. It's like it's an endless stream of flipping the channels. And now that we have YouTube Shorts, we have Instagram Reels, and like everybody is sort of doing it in a way. And even the, you know, the TikTok, the Twitter Explore page, excuse me, like all of these things, a new contract of social media now is that it's not about who you follow. We bring it to you. And as a result of that, you then as a person or as a creator or whoever, like you can't build an audience because everybody is sort of operating in a silo that just sort of gets channeled into conversation, which is amazing in a lot of ways. I love that because I can peek into anything. However, when we then think about that being a sort of like anti-human approach to be able to like build community and connection, that's bad. Number two, then you have like AI literal actors, like let's say it is an AI creator, an AI musician, AI whatever, who then are infiltrating and increasingly filling that space. Then there is like becoming less and less of a possibility to be a creator, to be a community builder, to be anything that sort of is like uniting people in this space where it's intending for you to just like be in the middle of the dance floor and enjoy it. And like that is fun, but you know, when you're at a club, when you're at a bar or whatever, like you then go back to your group of friends and you talk and you decompress. And like they're trying to shut that down. And like to the point of like the whole magnification and the whatever, like they're going hand in hand, which is that's scary to me.
Do you think? I mean, Kyle, I always struggle a little bit with things like they're trying to, because I partially because I don't know who they is in that case, and partially because I having had a fair amount of experience with quote unquote collective action, I'm not sure they're actually coordinated, whomever they are, and in a lot of respects, it's sort of accidental. But I wonder to what extent you think there's actual coordination. Either of you think there's actual coordination around this point?
It's just a more of a confluence of YouTube is a perfect example. Is like we are pushing AI tools. We are pushing you to use VTubers, virtual YouTubers, or various other like, you know, puppets basically that are not you to do your work and that sort of thing. And like by pushing that, they're basically saying that like, you know, you can get out of the way, like just do this AI thing. And then on top of that, then you have people who are creating just AI things and just putting it in there. And like it's less of one specific idea or person. I think it's more of like, it's the trend of it all. The trend of the never ending feed and the trend of like, well, AI can do things easy. Like AI can now make you this movie, like put your Sora slop on there. And like that, those two things combined make it so that it's like, are going to enable that. Cause then it's going to be, maybe that won't happen, but I like to like stare at the darkness and be like, okay, I realize that could happen. And then I try to make that not happen.
Yeah, for sure. You want to have the opposite reaction. Marcus, where do you, I mean, with the US's future, let's call it undefined, if not simply uncertain, as well as the increased politicization of this social media sphere through successful examples like Mandami or you know, terrifying examples like the Ukraine war, where do you see the platform and the sort of shape of entertainment and expression and propaganda and disinformation going in 2026?
I don't know. I didn't expect.
No, but you're the researcher, Marcus. You're supposed to tell us the answers.
You're supposed to know.
Yeah, tell us. Okay. Well, there's always two point of views, right? So one point of view is pretty dark, and we definitely live in pretty grim times. And you could say that the entire promise of this free and open and good internet of the late 1990s, or social media platforms, everybody's coming together, learning. This has come to an end, I guess, for
And
sure.
is TikTok emblematic of that, or do you just see that as as a thing writ large?
TikTok is part of that. It's a platform like other platforms. But the other point of view is, in the end, algorithms are informed by actions from actual human beings. It's not like the robot overlord, but it's people doing stuff and people sharing Mamdani content and then going out to actually vote him. I see these both things, and I have absolutely no idea what's about to happen in 2026.
My it's not specific to the platform, but I will be interested to see whether it comes to light. The generation of people that I grew through my 20s with was benefited by a access to social opportunities that was funded by brands, let's call it. And one of the things that I think has been really interesting in the last year or so is that the social platforms, partially because of TikTok as the ultimate randomizer, right, where it is hard to build and sustain a consistent audience over and over and over again, and it is easy to suddenly win a lottery ticket and gain a large audience quickly. That, and then the push to monetization for Instagram in particular, has meant that it is no longer valuable for brands to get small groups of highly influential people together. It is more important now to get larger groups of people together and have more lottery tickets essentially in the bingo wheel, to mix metaphors here. What I wonder about is if we see that online-offline nexus that you just talked about, Marcus, coming into sharper focus, where people start to think, young people in particular, I need to spend more of my time offline engaging with people in reality, and I need to spend less of that time IRL capturing content, because once I've made the first lottery ticket, that's my sort of entry into the drawing.
Absolutely, for sure.
I wonder if that's going to be the case everywhere.
Where the numbers have been peaking with a social media usage, a couple of years, right? It's more like going down. And the more AI slop is just like flooding the zone with stuff, the faster, especially younger people, I presume, and I have two Gen Alpha people running around next door. Probably they will just listen to Rosalia going like no AI on the album. They will have dumb
Right.
phones, and they will have a pretty good time, just like in the early 1990s. So yeah, there's hope.
If your Gen Alphas are listening to Rosalia, I would say you've got some pretty advanced Gen
Yeah,
Alphas.
pretty cool.
That's my point, but yeah.
I forced them to.
Oh, okay.
Hey, well, it stuck
There
so
we go.
good.
There we go. Well, listen, we're reaching the end of the conversation, but Kyle, we haven't gotten a prediction for the future from you. You got any hot takes on what happens in 2026?
I mean, I do think people are going to continue to log off. I think that is very true. I think in a lot of ways, again, because the big fucking rich dorks came in and like peed on everything that was beautiful on social media and on the internet, people are just going to be like, this sucks, and want to go. And like, whether they realize it or not, but I think in some way, I think to your point, Marcus, of like, it's going to turn back to the 90s, is that in a lot of ways it will become a tool again. It'll be a place that people sort of watch. I don't think they're going to interact as much. I think we're already sort of seeing that with for not for better, but definitely for worse, like media companies, they're losing numbers because like AI scraping their sites and like they're not getting that traffic anymore. I think that's a really good example of that coming to life, for better or worse. But I think like there's going to be a come to Jesus about that, of like, no, being online isn't fun anymore. It's a tool to live your life. It's not life lived. Where it'll be the come to Jesus, quote unquote, is like so many of us, myself included, who have, maybe all of us here actually, who have done so much of business and life in these channels, what happens to us? And I think that's sort of like a larger what if that I wonder about, because that then will mean what happens to social media marketing teams, what happens to like people who are like advertising, like these are bigger questions we're gonna have to discuss, but I do think that's where it's gonna go.
Well, I mean, worst case, we could follow Marcus's example and become TikTok researchers and
exactly.
head down that the cottage industry.
TikTok archaeologists.
Exactly. Marcus, well,
Nice.
thank you. Thank you for being here. When speaking of, by the way, I have to just go on record to say I am missing understanding TikTok. We haven't had a post in a couple of weeks. When are we gonna get some more?
I'm desperately sorry. I just finished like 2 papers, and I should promote our little talk there, right? So this
well,
would
I mean,
Inspo, there we go.
we would love that. In the meantime, so understanding TikTok is the newsletter on Substack. MarcusBosch.de is the website where Marcus's work is available. It's in English for those of us who are not German readers. And then Marcus, any other place that people can find you that is interesting? Where's this the thirst trap paper that you just talked about? Is that available in the world?
Oh my God, academia. It has been under review like forever. It's so to say forthcoming. It's just there. They just need to tap on the button. I hope it'll be there, but I will announce it obviously in a newsletter. So you should definitely subscribe.
Fantastic. All right. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us for Ben not being able to talk, for Hip Replacement episode number 34 with Marcus Bosch of Understanding TikTok. And this has been a pleasure. Kyle and I do this every Monday to be released every Tuesday. So we will be back next week with another conversation. But in the meantime, have a great one. Go subscribe to Understanding TikTok. You can find Kyle at 1234 Kyle 5678.substack.com for the trend report, and I am at sick.substack.com. Bye.
Thank you very much, God.